Are we good? Can everyone hear me? Jen Shan, can you hear me in the back? Yes? Perfect. All right. Good evening, everyone. I want to start by thanking all of you for coming out tonight to celebrate Susan. Where is Susan? Because I need to make deep eye contact with her while we're speaking.
I'm sorry.
She doesn't like to be the center of attention, so she tries to keep herself busy. So we're just gonna all keep our eye on her tonight. I have struggled for weeks with what to say this evening. How do I describe what Susan has done for our countryside families, her coworkers, and selfishly me? For our countryside families, Susan has often been seen as the voice of discipline. I'm sure no one looks forward to hearing, "Hi, this is Susan Richardson from Countryside." But what I hope you always took away from those conversations is how much Susan cares for the growth and development of your child. Difficult conversations have never been easy for her, nor taken lightly. What your students may not tell you is how well Susan knows each of your children. Susan remembers their moments here, and she celebrates them. She remembers the plays and the recitals and the birthdays, and she is genuinely proud of them. Susan shares with them stories of Countryside's past, making sure that we all understand the humble beginnings of our little school. For her coworkers, I think they would all agree that she is a listening and sympathetic ear. It is a rare day, none of that, when a faculty or staff member isn't seen telling her a story or asking for a piece of advice on how best to reach a student. Often that counsel ends with bursts of laughter because if Susan is anything, she is funny. Whether it is dancing in her chair, coming up with nicknames for the admin team, which we will not be mentioning here this evening, or telling us a story from Devon growing up to the things she's experienced here at Countryside. She has a quick tongue and a knack for storytelling. I will wrap up with how Susan has impacted me. I mean, have I done my job tonight if I don't go for the tears? Just kidding. Although I have known Susan for nearly a decade, I know, can you believe it? It's felt more like, what, 10 short minutes underwater? Okay. In all seriousness, in the winter of 2019, Susan got a phone call that I would be the new interim head of school. Like any associate head would, she was wary of a parent or board member stepping into this role. We met shortly after that first phone call, and let's be clear, we were sizing each other up in that friendly tea or coffee kind of way. I'm not sure how she felt, but I felt so relieved after that meeting. I got to see firsthand how much Susan loves Countryside, how over the years she has carried more than her share of the burden and has protected it fiercely. Over the course of the last 3.5 years, Susan and I have made a remarkable team, if I do say so myself. She gets my first reactions, my raised eyebrows, and knows how to hide all of the hoarding she and Vivian want to do in places that I can't find. In exchange, I provide her with an endless supply of gum, M&Ms, even though she's not supposed to have them, and I never comment on what might be buried in her office. We have survived a pandemic, both literally and professionally. We have laughed, and yes, we have cried, because that's what you do when you are part of a family together. I always say this school is bigger than all of us, and it will go on without all of us. But that doesn't mean it isn't changed by each of us. Susan, I will miss you. Peace and love. I think we could have asked any number of people to speak tonight on behalf of the contributions Susan has made to Countryside, but there is no one better than our founding head of school, Cathie Webber. Cathie, are you all set?
I'm here.
Good evening. It's really strange to be back here speaking. Taking you back in time. It was a pleasantly warm and sunny day in the middle of April 1994 when I walked into the small storefront school. Some of you remember that. It was located in the space now occupied by Pets Plus next to County Market down the road on Kirby. Anyhow, I was to look for a Susan Richardson who would show me the school. As I walked in, I could see children and teachers busily moving around happily. Among them, where is she, Mrs. Kirby? Who was not Mrs. Kirby then, she was Miss Bunyan. In the midst of this activity stood a woman twirling a whistle in the right hand and clutching a stack of papers in the left. She obviously was a multitasker. I later learned she answered phones, monitored the playground and lunches, handled the boo-boos, and served the many functions of a secretary, all on a little bitty part-time job. Susan Richardson, she introduced herself, and the tour began. Good luck, she said afterwards. It isn't going to be easy. Thus began a year of expanding an elementary school, adding a middle school. There was so much to do in the 3 months before school started. Hiring teachers for kindergarten, second grade, 4 or 5, middle school, and all of the specialties. Curriculum development, furnishing new classrooms, thanks to Vicki Smith with University Cast-Off. Setting up the technology, developing the forms, handbooks, and documents needed to go from a small K-4 school of 36 students to a full K-8 school. Susan and I did it in a whirlwind of activity. It was the beginning of 20 years filled with big challenges, tricky situations, huge rewards, and lots of laughter. To help tell the Susan story, I decided to seek assistance from colleagues who are no longer at the school, but who were a vital part of those first 20 years. Thanks to these former people for their contributions. Becky Wagner, Donna Battershell, Janet Brickey, Xiaoxin Cheng, Shoyan Chen Berry, Josh Clark, Julie Corley, Kathy Eckstein, Bill Fallon, Kim Feil, Sharon Henson, Karen Kovacs, Chris Lugman, Michelle O'Brien, and Natalia Stilnicki all have contributed to this. And those were the written ones. It isn't possible to share all of their heartfelt responses with you, so I have condensed their thoughts into main themes with a few quotes. Overview. Courtesy of Julie Miller Corley. Raise your hand, Julie. She's here, there. Former third grade teacher. Susan was funny, she was kind, and boy did she have an extraordinary mind. Category next. Jack of all trades. She could do it all and did. Technology, director, librarian, recruiter, trainer, teacher, counselor, mediator, supervisor, mentor, repair person, and the sword of justice. Mentoring. Susan was a work mother for many new teachers who sought advice and refuge in her office, where one, Michelle O'Brien, middle school social studies teacher, said, I learned to be a better teacher and a better human. I am truly grateful for all the time I spent on the floor of her little office, smooshed between the door and the laptop checkout station, getting advice about how to handle a parent email, hearing tidbits from whatever new online course she was taking, or book she was reading, or problem solving a student behavior that I was having trouble with. I bet I heard, and how's that working for you? A million times on that floor. Echoing those thoughts, but in terms of student mentoring, Natalia Zilnicki, former middle school math teacher, said, although not a teacher herself, Susan was a dedicated mentor. She loved all the students at Countryside and was willing to go the extra mile for them. Over those 20 years, Susan always gave students as much time as they needed or wanted to discuss worries, behaviors, and fears. She never rushed a child out of her office, and she always remained calm and caring. Presence. Susan had it. By just walking into a classroom, she could quiet a crowd. And it was particularly noticeable when she was totally silent. Performer. Often teachers would come to the office looking for talent. Talent was anyone who could step in and assume a character in some classroom project. Susan was always game, or at least could be talked into it. She reigned as a queen, a Diagon Alley shopkeeper, a Greek oracle, a Greek goddess, Mona Lisa, the Statue of Liberty, a beauty school dropout, and so many, many more roles, all played with flair and wit. And then there were all those school PE musical shows staged by Krystal Young, former PE teacher, coach, and drama teacher. Former music teacher Kim File, you're here, I know you were, recalled, Susan will always resonate in my countryside memories as a Tin Man, the Wizard of Oz, and an oversized piece of dancing cutlery, Beauty and the Beast. Heavy metal apparently being her performance choice of medium back then in the late 90s, early 2000s. Organization. Well, she could organize all of our technology clubs, trip arrangements, extended day library, fighting substitutes, and those endless forms. She could never quite manage to organize her office. Intellectual curiosity. Susan is one of the brightest, most intellectually curious people I have ever known. A true role model for lifelong learning. This was recognized over and over and over again by her former colleagues. She experiences the world with a curiosity and wonder which, combined with her deep compassion and easy laugh, helped create a comfortable spot for everyone at Countryside. Comedy Central. That's what people called our office. My favorite thing about Susan is her sense of humor, recalls Sharon Henson, former 4-5 teacher and science specialist. She can bring levity to any situation, no matter how dire and overwhelming. And her wisecracks and one-liners kept me going in my job, no matter how dicey things got. Everyone remembers Susan for her witty one-liners and wonderful laugh. Your laughter's one of life's joys, said Cathie Webber, former 4-5 teacher, also here. And that was echoed by so many others. After whipping off a one-liner, Susan would always roll around and say to me, "Who's the funniest person you know?" I would never give it to her then. But Susan, you are the naturally most funniest person I know. I'll never say it again. A gifted problem solver, a model lifelong learner, a real listener, a tireless worker, a treasured friend. This is the Susan Richardson we remember and love. Thank you, Susan, for being you and for giving your heart and soul to this school for 30 years. I'll close with these words from Binky that truly summarize it all. She cared. She really cared. Thank you.
I'm sorry that you...
This is just a day in the life of our office. How big would you like the font, Ms. Richardson?
Just about bigger. There you go. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, here we are. I had hoped to say something meaningful and original. It turns out that leaving something someplace in people after 29 years. Oh, geez. And I read those articles about not crying. And trying to sum up the experiences and express my gratitude naturally leads to cliches. So I'm going with cliches, and I am bending those cliches to my will. Never doubt that a small group of people can change the world. That's only the first sentence in that famous saying. Nevertheless, to those folks who got together and helped create Countryside, I would like to shout, "Look what we did." Gather ye rosebuds while you may. We should not delve too deeply into that one in this setting, but I use the phrase to emphasize that 29 years went by way, way too fast. Thanks for the memories. It's actually thanks for the memory. I thank you nonetheless for all the memories, the students, the people I've enjoyed meeting, and the energy. And lastly, the only cliche I have ever found that can weather any situation, and from the bottom of my heart, I wish you all peace of love.
Okay, you go back to the music now?
Yes. All right, if you were in line for receiving, Susan's gonna get herself together for a second and get back to it.
Yes, absolutely, but I
There you go.